Hey guys, let's start our own country. Hey guys, it's Nick, one half of the Garbled podcast. Ramon is not joining us for this particular video because this is crazy. Let's call it what it is. But this is my pitch for starting our own country. I'm tagging a few networks in this, History Channel, Netflix, others. Basically, networks I think that would be able to produce a show like this. If it winds up living in the podcast space, that's fine too. But this is going to be an exploration into, could we, the common folk, start our own country, and how would we do it? I have a very nice jacket on, so let's get this official pitch underway. First off, why do I think that would even be possible? Well, because the groundwork's already being laid by billionaires. So there's got to be something there, right? Elon Musk is constantly talking about colonizing Mars. Other billionaires are going to space at a frightening rate. And there are countries out there right now looking at climate change. The current climate conference that just happened is saying basically that sea levels are going to rise, are already being addressed. So these are wheels that are already in motion to create new countries where old countries were, based on the changing environment, as well as being able to tame a harsh environment that has never had humans on it. So these are steps that are already being taken. And I think we should be able to take those steps ourselves. Let's look at the first thing first. The Maldives. They are a country of islands that are about 1 meter above sea level. And they will be the first country to be lost to rising oceans. Their response to that was, one, they started looking at other islands and mainland sites to relocate their people, but they went with a design company out of, I think they're Dutch. They went with a design company that basically designed for them an island system. Here, I'll show you. Okay, here's if I can share my screen. Here we go. Here is the Maldives floating city, which can be found at maldivesfloatingcity.com. And here's the basic island structure as it is now. And these structures in the middle are residential. What would it look like? Well, here's an artist rendering. Here's your city streets, community areas, and, your dock. And wow, is this beautiful. This is, if you got to relocate, that's not bad. Also, if you're interested in relocating and living in this environment, right now, $240,000, $250,000, something along those lines. And you can become a resident of the new Maldives as well, which is pretty interesting. So that's an example, a real world example of a country that is creating a floating island. There are several other examples of countries creating man-made, more traditional islands. China springing to mind. They tend to dredge the bottom of the ocean to create an island, kind of how it would happen in nature. If you had a volcano and many years, they kind of did a rush job. It was not very environmentally friendly. And quite frankly, they don't last because they're not built to last. And they make military bases out of it. It's not a good scene. But what the Maldives is doing is an example of putting on a floating island that's going to be less destructive to the environment and is going to be more sustainable. If it's floating, it can be repaired. It can be, sections can be replaced as needed. The particular materials they're using, I'm not 100% sure on. That I'm sure that information is out there. But this is an example of something that's going to be a little more environmentally sustaining. Plus, because I am who I am as a person, it reminds me of something else. Let me share my screen again. And this is Atlantis. This is the Stargate Atlantis. But here's an example of something that's floating that can sustain way more in terms of population than like the current population of the Maldives, or how many people they're looking to relocate to that floating island system. So could something like this be truly something that we could make? What would be the cost? What would be the time frame? Insurmountable in terms of looking at it, sort of macro and just looking at a picture of it. But if we use that as inspiration, what could we conceivably think of a population that would be able to fit on a structure like that? So when you're looking at a densely populated area to model what a city like that would look like, we got to look at Tokyo. It's the most densely populated city in the world. They have a little over 37 million people living in a little over 6,000 square kilometers of the city limits. Very densely populated, but showing that you can put a lot of people close together in an example of how you would be able to decrease building costs per square foot, if you want to look at it that way. Sorry, I'm referring to notes. So let's scale that up. 6,000 square kilometers. What if we had 60,000 square kilometers to play with? 10 times the space. Could we put 100 million people in that space? Well, obviously, yes. Yes, we can. If Tokyo can do it with a third of the population and a tenth of the size, yeah, I think we could do it. We would also be able to dedicate space to not just residential, but obviously we're going to need food production. I think vertical farming is the way to go there, but that's for a later discussion. And we're going to need other resources as well. So there's going to be a lot of dedicated space for all of that. So what does 60,000 square miles look like? Well, it is roughly the size of Latvia, or for folks in the US, the size of West Virginia. So not terribly large in terms of a footprint on the ocean. And we could definitely fit 100 million people in there. To give you an idea, Latvia and West Virginia have both have a population of about 2 million people in that space. Latvia's GDP, in terms of where are you going to get the money to actually do this project, they make $34 billion a year. West Virginia, slightly more, it's 78 billion, which is, I don't know how West Virginia is doing that. No offense, West Virginia. I lived there for a little while. But yeah, so there is money there to be made, just simply off the fact that you have that many people that would be able to, help you earn money, that would be able to sustain that kind of society. It's really only 60,000 square miles, by the way, 32,000 nautical miles across. It's a big chunk of land, but it's not, or big surface area, but not undoable, I don't believe. So there's so many different places we can go with the conversation from that premise. I'll get into some of those. I see a conversation like this having to span not only over different subjects, but also with having different voices, being the narrator slash interviewer. I mean, you got to talk about infrastructure, obviously, in the city itself, but also like the water tech, desalination, and things like that. Power in general, the environmental impact of something like this. But then we need to have conversations about healthcare, the laws that we make. Also, retirement and population, how it would flux. All subjects just off the top of my head. And I think when you're looking at things like tech, the environment, social constructs, I think each of those and all the others that would be encompassed should have a different voice. And also, it shouldn't be like me talking into a camera. I wouldn't watch that. So I would love to see interviews with experts, people that can speak in each individual field, and being talked to by someone who is able to have that conversation intelligently as well. So either it's guest hosts per episode or different hosts taking the different genres and having multiple episodes to explore those areas of society. The real interest to me would be in actually having this come about after all the planning, the talking, the discussion, the everything that goes into deciding if this is a good idea, then also taking this and making it a real world change, a change through conversation. So yeah, that's all well and good. And I can hear it now, but how are you going to pay for it? Well, mostly, you remember when I was talking about the Maldives, they were talking about if you want to go and live on this new island, a man-made island, you could do so. It's like $240,000, and that's where they're starting to fund it. Obviously, the government of the Maldives will be paying for the people that need to relocate to that structure, to that island. But outside investors and immigrants are going to be paying quite a bit of it as well. How much this would cost? No idea. But, you know, if we use that as a benchmark, $240,000 as an average per resident times 100 million people, we're talking trillions and trillions of dollars, several trillions of dollars that could be fundraised in that manner. How much a project like that would cost, I'll need to get some quotes. But that's part of the whole exploration of this. Is it possible? Can it be done? The actual city building itself will be very interesting. The inner workings of all that. Where this would be placed, I don't know in which world ocean a structure like that would be able to be placed, where international borders and laws are on the sea, international waters, where you could possibly put that, where it's going to have the least impact on the environment, but also be within kind of established shipping lanes. I'm thinking, I don't know. These are all questions that need to be asked. Also, the social aspect. If people from all over the world, from different walks of life and different locations, are all coming together into a brand new country, how would that work? What would that look like? Just the social aspect of it is fascinating to me. Beyond that, again, how do you house, clothe, feed all of these residents? How do you, the systems that come up with that? How do you write laws? How do you write those laws? What do you put into the Constitution to make sure everyone is protected, so we don't repeat some of the mistakes of the past that we can learn from? Other things like, you know, what kind of economy do we want? Do we want to be capitalist? would that work? Very good discussion point. Every single aspect of having to pull this off could be its own show. It could be its own series of shows within the greater structure of that conversation. Is it, as my friend Evan said, fantastical? Is it fantasy? But right now it is. Right now it is. It's an interesting thought, an interesting discussion. If we hammer out all the details over the course of a very long run of conversations, is it something that people would buy into? I don't know. I guess this video will help tell me if there's even an appetite for the conversation. Best case scenario, let's say we do it. We make our own country. We start fresh, clean slate, build from absolutely the ground up in every aspect of that nation, of that society. And it happens. That would be amazing. Worst case scenario, we talk about it. There's not an appetite to start our own country. There's not a feasible way to do it currently. But we get to take away from that conversation so many points about how you would do it correctly. We could take that knowledge and what we've learned from that back to conversations we're having in our own countries. The United States, it's where I live. There are so many things, so many conversations, very tough conversations that we're having right now on the national stage and locally, that having, and so many people are so entrenched right now. They're so just divided and unable to look outside of their own argument. So if you walk away from an argument like that and think about something else, something similar, but something else, and you take a different approach and then go back to that conversation, you will have at least new arguments to make, new problem solving tools that will allow you to have that conversation. I think, just to end my pitch, I don't want to go on forever for this particular episode, but there are so many facets of society that would need to be looked at without looking at your own society, without diving deep into your own politics, because you're just going to be building from the ground up. We did a show one time that was talking about a thought experiment where it's you and it's a bunch of people and you're in the middle of nowhere. You have no idea how you got there. You have nothing. What's the first thing you do? What's the second thing you do? What's the third thing you do? That thought experiment is basically the crux of what the conversation would be. How would you do it? How would you build it? How would you execute it? What would it look like when it's done by the end of the series? There's a lot of room. There's a lot of meat on this bone, a lot of conversation to be had. And I really look forward to having that conversation. Again, I think, and not through my video editing, I think it would be an amazing, show. I think it would spawn shows off of the main show to specifically look at certain aspects of the main idea and dive deeper into those things. There's so many different directions it can go. I don't see it, you'll never be lacking for content. Every single direction you look in is a brand new conversation. So I think it's something that I absolutely would be happy to talk about for the rest of my life. And I think it has longevity in terms of content creation. So this is what I want to pursue. how it's pursued and what medium it is shown on, is completely up to you guys. So like, follow, subscribe, notification bell. I'm still getting used to the YouTube thing, but show engagement on this and comment. What do you think? Crazy? Yeah, I've already conceded that. But share this idea and ask yourself this: is this something I would watch? If it is, if you're even a little bit interested, let's pursue it. Let's see how far this goes. Anyway, thanks, guys. I will talk to you later.